Thanks for reading part of our study today in Isaiah. We're in Isaiah 53. And I'm not going to read any at the moment, but rather what I'm going to do is what we talked about yesterday. We're going to try to get an outline of the sacrificial system. And so Rudy's going to talk and I'm going to write. And I'm going to try to write on my whiteboard here more legibly than I did the last time I did it. And let's try to get a foundation for why Jesus was sacrificed on the cross, why Isaiah prophesied it 700 years before it happened, and why it still benefits us today. So Rudy, why don't you start us off at the very beginning of the sacrificial system? What was the first act of the sacrificial system in your mind?
The first act was basically building the tabernacle, and it was built only to be able to do sacrifices for various violations of the Ten Commandments.
All right. Did I spell that correctly?
Yes.
Thank you. Good. I don't have spell check on this.
I don't have a spell check either, so.
So this tabernacle was for sacrifices. And what did a sacrifice look like?
Well, sacrifice for God had to be perfect, no blemishes. And the Ten Commandments are basically the constitution of the kingdom. The sacrificial system is the vehicle that God gave for us so that when we violated the law,
Right.
we would have a way to restore our relationship with Him.
Right.
Blood covers sin.
Okay.
That's what Moses said. Moses was told, I have given it, there is life in the blood, and I have given it for you to make atonement for your souls on the altar.
Okay. Let me stop, and you correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm going to draw a horrible rendition of the Holy of Holies.
Okay, the Holy of Holies is completely.
I mean the Ark. I'm saying the Ark. I said the Ark. And then you have the two tablets of the Ten Commandments, correct?
Yes.
And those, in my way of thinking, I use my terminology, they cry out against our sins. They declare that Rudy and Bob and everybody on earth, we have violated these 10 covenant agreements with God.
I agree that they are the line of demarcation for good behavior.
Okay.
If we were to have followed these, we wouldn't need any sacrifices.
Right. So on top, we have a golden lip, and I've drawn this horribly, and that's called the mercy seat, right?
Correct.
All right.
And it's two angels touching each other.
Right.
Their wings touching each
And
other.
is this where the blood comes?
That's once a year, the blood is sprinkled there 7 times, but in order to be able to do that, everything in the tabernacle, the whole tabernacle, the altar, the laver, the curtains, everything has to be cleansed. Then the high priest, on the Day of Atonement, once a year, in the 10th day of the 7th month, would go into the Holy of Holies completely unrobed except in the white garment, similar to the white garment that we will be given in heaven and that we read about in Revelation, and we're told to wait a little longer.
Good.
That's how he walks into the Holy of Holies once a year, and it only can be the high priest that does it.
So this is, to me, a graphic picture of God saying, you have a problem, and the only way your problem will be solved is through sacrifice.
Correct. But I think that God as a teacher
Right?
would prefer you never to break one. He knew, because he gave us free will, that there was consequences to free will.
Right.
But he also knew that we wouldn't be able to choose him freely without it.
Right.
That free will's consequences is that we're going to make wrong choices.
Right.
And wrong choices, if we feel guilty about it, we basically if we want our relationship back with God, we basically have to do what he said it took
Right.
for us to be in right relationship.
Very
with him.
good. Now, yesterday you talked about a red thread, the red thread of this sacrificial system that begins here but goes throughout the Bible. Give us a couple of the touchstones as we move towards Isaiah 53.
Okay, just as a reminder, Abel's blood cries out. Moses couldn't have known that. God told him that.
Right.
And Moses wrote it down, the book of Genesis. Right after the flood, Noah's told that he can eat animals, but don't eat them with the blood because there's life in the blood.
Okay.
And then 1,500 years later, Moses is told that life is in the blood, but the Lord adds this clause at the end of that sentence, and I have given it to you to make atonement for your souls on the altar. It's only this altar that's in front of the tabernacle that can be used, because God told Moses that if you sacrifice just any place, you are actually sacrificing to goat demons, not me.
Okay.
So it's specific where this can go on. It can't go on any place that you choose.
Right.
Because he's the one that makes this whole.
So this is, the point we're trying to make is this is a very consistent, very dramatic theme throughout the Bible. And can I say it is at the heart of the relationship that the people of God had with him?
Yes.
I mean, without this, what do you have? I mean,
Well, every Jew knew once a year, even if he was someplace way away from Jerusalem, which he wasn't supposed to be, but if he were, or she were, that every sacrifice, every sin that they had committed throughout the year, at least for one moment, was cleansed on the Day of Atonement.
right.
And ultimately, Jesus' death on the cross on Passover actually fulfills that for Christianity.
Right.
It fulfills it for the whole universe when they understand who has believed our message,
Right.
and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed. This all pulls together if you believe the whole message. God talks about who's believed our message because he knows what the message is.
Yes.
It's always been that you couldn't do it. He made a way that you could.
Right.
And ultimately it's blood. But the red thread has another connotation to it as well, which brings you back to Jesus' blood. And it happens in the ashes of the red heifer.
Can we get to that tomorrow?
Sure.
Rudy has a brain full of ideas. I do too. And we are trying to get this in a time space. We're going to talk about the ashes of the red heifer tomorrow, and we're going to be back in Isaiah 53. Thank you, Rudy, for your insights. Thank you for listening. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow.